Who was the best Counter-Strike player in the world in 2025? Every year, HLTV attempts to rank the top 20 best players, and they're currently doing a countdown to their number 1 spot. And this year, it's incredibly difficult to determine who will win. It will almost definitely be between Zywoo and Donk. Donk with his unmatched skills against Zywoo's unmatched number of achievements, trophies and awards. And he also has insane skills. But it's super hard to compare the two players because they both play very different roles in very different teams. Zywoo is part of Vitality, which is a much stronger team than Team Spirit is, which is who Donk plays for. Vitality is currently considered the number 1 team in the world, while Spirit lands in at number 8. Still great, but still far behind. And I think it's harder to play well when you're on a team that loses more. If only we could somehow swap Donk and Zywoo over and compare the exact same year again, maybe then we'd have a better idea of how much of a difference this makes. But we can't do that. And being the site with all the data, HLTV is in a better position than most are to decide who deserves the top spot. So I'll be going through the numerous different metrics that they use when deciding. The first is statistics, which HLTV has a lot of. Both players have a personal page on HLTV with all of their stats for the year. I foolishly attempted to circle the higher scores in each category, but immediately regretted it and ran into difficulties because stats really don't tell the full story. I mean, if you get saved more often by your teammates, does that make you a worse player or one who plays better with your team? But then I think you'll agree that saving more teammates is a good thing. Or does it mean that you've let them get into more trouble in the first place? So yeah, I regret trying to do this now, so I'll remove all these circles and we'll simply talk about their stats. Point is, both these players perform very differently. Donk is a high impact player who I think comes out top in what I would consider to be the most exciting metrics, whereas Zywoo scores better in aspects like sniping, utility usage and by getting killed less. But when you consider Donk's role as being the guy who rushes in first, compared with Zywoo being an AWPer first and foremost, that's understandable. But then there's value to being the backbone of the team who might take on a more supportive role most of the time, but who still has the skill and ability to step up and to clutch when needed. HLTV's new Rating 3.0 tries to take more of these factors into consideration, and by these ratings, Donk comes out on top. But hopefully now you can understand the challenge in determining which of these players is best. There's a lot more to it than raw stats. The second metric they're measured on is awards. HLTV hands out most valuable and exceptionally valuable player awards for each notable event played in the year, but they note that the significance of each award varies based on the level and importance of the tournaments that they were awarded in. There is this page showing how many MVP awards each player has got every year, and it shows Zywoo leading in 2025 with 8, whereas Donk has just 4. Rubbish! So why does Zywoo score so much more? For this, we must look to the third factor HLTV considers, event tiers, which is more about how they rank the importance of the events played out in the year, with majors being the most important, of which Zywoo got MVP in all of them. Then below that are the super elite events like Cologne and Katowice, from which Donk and Zywoo both scored 1 MVP each. Then the next tier down are the elite events, where Zywoo scored another MVP and Molodoi got the other. No donking in sight. These MVPs do tend to be awarded to players from teams that win the tournament, and it's no surprise that Zywoo's stronger team scores him more MVPs here. But what are we comparing here, the best team or the best player? The next metric HLTV considers is sample size, because it's possible for a player to play in just one event of the year and to do super well, but that doesn't mean they're the best player of that year. Now, Zywoo has played 22% more rounds and has amassed 9% more kills than Donk has in 2025. But as you'd imagine, both have been very active, and even if they had both played in the same number of tournaments, by simply being on the stronger team that reaches the finals more often, you would expect Zywoo to accumulate more maps played, more rounds won, and more opportunities for kills and so on. But does that mean he's a better player and deserves MVP, or simply that his team's better? That's the challenge in separating the achievements of the player from those of their team. Another metric to consider is recency bias, because people are more likely to remember players' performances in more recent events like the Star Ladder Budapest Major, which has only just ended last December. But the whole year needs to be considered, even if it is also important to factor in more recent events to understand the trajectory of these players' careers. If I document the last month against the last 3 months and the last 6 months and year, then we end up with this load of rubbish and can learn almost nothing from it whatsoever. But you'll notice again that Donk's rating is always higher. Look, HLTV are the ones with all the detailed stats and the know-how to interpret them. And that's where the final factor comes into play. The committee, where HLTV staff use their immense knowledge and expertise of the scene to, yes, consider all of these stats, but also everything else about these players that you might not get from simply counting the awards and kills and stuff. You've got to factor in their stories, their struggles, the feeling you get when you watch them, and those standout moments which are so much more than the sum of their parts. Historically, Zywoo has been in the top 3 players every year since 2019. Donk didn't even make it to the list until last year, since that's when he really broke into the top level of play, and he was immediately catapulted to number 1 on the list. In terms of raw skill, I don't think Donk's ability can be questioned, which to me makes him a viable candidate for the number 1 spot. But then Zywoo's also great, and has been great for so many years. He's consistent, so sweet and lovable. And I can go on and on and on about separating the player from the team, but why? Maybe you can't. Maybe Zywoo is on the top team in the world because he's so great, and maybe it's a great team because he's on it. Maybe being the best player in the world is more than just being the best player. It's about being a great team player, and one who integrates so closely with the team that you cannot separate the two without losing the magic. And Zywoo's prestigious history is testament to that. And also he's currently winning on the poll I'm running on Twitter. But only one can win. So I'm happy it isn't me having to decide who will get the number 1 spot. You're probably quite happy about that too. They're both exceptional players, and I wish them both the best of luck. But yeah, one of them will have to lose, so